Hi there. In this presentation, I want to answer a question that people, in a rather cliched way, say is the most important question: why are we here? From the Gnostic point of view, or from a Gnostic point of view, I should say, really. And to do that, I want to create four categories of existential beingness, or metaphysics and physics. The sort of great divide and between various paradigms, if you like, religious paradigms and irreligious paradigms, um, and the sort of duality as I see it from my point of view of being in a dualistic universe, of course. But and from this, I came to a very startling conclusion today about the function of soul within the realm of the Demiurge, and it's not it moves away from a paradigm of the rather gloomy conclusion that we are trapped in this evil world, to a much more optimistic, perhaps slightly Zoroastrian view, that we are doing something in order to bring something about, so that we are agents of light, agents of Asher. We are part of the Asherman, as the Zoroastrians would say. So first of all, we have here, pretty obviously, the material personal, which is that we live in, we're not islands. We live in society. We live with siblings. We live with parents, guardians, family members. We live in communities of various kinds. We live in the community of humanity. If that's not getting too large a unit to consider, we're in relationship with everything in the universe, and particularly with people. And it is all about personalities and getting on with people, and everybody's different, and we've all got sort of muddle along together on this small planet, with personalities clashing occasionally, but generally trying to seek a harmonious solution to the fact that we're all different, and that we want different things at different times from each other. So personal. It's personal and it's material in the sense that this is a humanist view of the world, that we have consciousness, but that consciousness is based on material considerations such as polypeptides in the brain, and society and economics, and response to scarcity, and response to adversity, and psychology, and to all the things that create the reactive mind, and necessity as well, being the mother of invention, of course. And our society and our relationships are maintained, are created, are preserved, and are changed according to social laws and sociological observations of one kind or another. So that's pretty obvious, the personal and the material. As I say, that's really where humanism arises from. And, and the fact that people have rights as well, that's part of it. So humanism, the rights of man, so this is post-Enlightenment, post 1840s, 1860s, that kind of way. Although perhaps even before then, really. I think Leviathan was written in the 1790s, or I think 1780s. Anyway, so the rights of man, very important. I would say definitely in 1740s, definitely, not the 1840s. So that's pretty obvious. Now the material, impersonal, that is where atheism, materialism, the materialist philosophy comes from, the English school philosophy after A.J. Ayres, and really there isn't anything beyond the neurological. There isn't anything beyond the material. And matter is made up of quarks ultimately, and subatomic particles all doing their thing, and but it's all a question of relativity and scale. Obviously, things behave differently on a massive interstellar scale than they do on a subatomic scale, for example, and every scale in between that. But as far as our brains are concerned, it's just brain. There is no soul. It's just matter, and it's entirely impersonal, because ultimately, society and our relationships dissolve upon death, and change, calamitous change, for example, which produce a whole new set of relationships and paradigms and norms, values, and beliefs. So ultimately dependent on matter. So matter is the primordial and primary building block of all consciousness, perception, society, relationship, everything. And it's just an impersonal set of forces. Some have even pointed out that the basic algorithm is adversarial in the world, and that everything operates from basis of conflict and resolution, and then conflict again. So eternal adversarial forces are at work in this impersonal material universe, and that's as probably a pretty useful paradigm as far as it goes. And then, and of course, supported by a lot of empirical evidence and empirical observation, of course. But then we move on to the metaphysical, which is a sort of pre-Enlightenment era, in which people really saw that they envisaged or had experience of transcendental experiences of the immaterial. And very often this is immaterial personal. So, you had a personal visit from a deity, and deities revealed themselves to have personalities, and to be personable, and to be approachable as one would approach a person, albeit a very elevated person, more like a king or an emperor. And of course, obviously models based on the Oriental potentates and the village chief and the village elders. So the deities are very much personal, but immaterial in the sense you can't see them normally, you can't detect them. You have to have a transcendental experience to detect and to become aware of these celestial personalities that are involved in our spiritual growth, or represent some kind of ultimate goal to our spiritual growth. And all this, of course, assumes a metaphysic, assumes a spirituality, a spiritual stuff, which is utterly beyond this world, and utterly beyond the material, beyond the interstellar, and certainly beyond the subatomic. Although some people have tried to relate spirituality, some kind of subatomic or quark or quantum level of reality, and which may or may not be true. But really, metaphysics is really thinking about something which is utterly other, and indeed comes before physics. So before there was the quantum level of reality, there is a greater reality that caused that quantum reality to come into existence. And in Hinduism, of course, one thinks of prana. Pra means before, and na means breath. So before there was breath, there was prana. Before there was reality, there was a reality that caused reality to come into existence, and that's what can be detected through pranayama. Is the prana, or the stuff, the breath that came before breath. In Platonic terms, a sort of the what might call the idea of breath came before breath, in the realm of ideas. Now, of course, when we talk about the personal and immaterial, of course, talking about Hinduism, actually, there was a very influential and powerful movement of philosophy that was entirely materialistic and impersonal. that grew up in India in the Middle Ages, and this idea was that there was nothing beyond material, but we do have the here and now, so we perceive the here and now, and that's basically about as transcendental as you can get. There isn't anything else above the perception of here and now through meditation, through calming the mind. Other than that, it's just material. So I suppose really, but then there was a reaction against that in the Vedanta tradition, which is that there is an impersonal immaterial, and we might call this sort of the flow of life, the Reiki or the Chi or Ek, to put it in Eckankar terms. There's a flowing of energy. There's a magnetic force or a pre-magnetic force, a prana or pranic energy, which basically, if you imagine reality as being like an island, and it floats on this sea of everything that came before reality. So it's totally immaterial. It's impersonal because it doesn't know you're there. But it's like the impersonal material. Its counterpart is immaterial, but it is greater than the material. It is that which caused the material to come into existence. It is other than the material, but it is just an impersonal flow, and we can detect this impersonal flow in many different ways. So-called hidden ways, but of course they're not hidden once you know what they are and once you've been trained in them. And of course the first person ever to detect this impersonal, immaterial force field was somebody who had a transcendental experience of it. Now, so flowing from this, though, a lot of people would say, especially in modern times, that our perception of gods and angels and whatnot are basically just our personalities projecting. We're projecting our personalities onto this impersonal, immaterial universe in order to personalize it, to anthropomorphize it. So that the idea is that this impersonal, immaterial force indeed becomes a god with a white beard, or a sort of Gandalf figure, and basically it's just a way of projecting, what we know of this world onto the next world, and looking for and hoping that there's some kind of similarity to give us some kind of platform or some kind of reference point, I suppose, really, because it's hard to fall in love with a packet of a ball of energy called chi or ek, but if it has an intelligence, if it has an essence, if it has a personality to it, or perhaps not even a personality, a trans personality, but a wisdom, a sort of indeed a way of yes, something that personable that you can relate to, just as you can relate to the personal and material. So I think this is the kind of Mahayana Buddhist kind of view that the gods are empty. They have form, but they don't exist in the way that you and I exist. They're just a form of the Reiki or Chi or Ek. They're kind of like they're created by us principally. But then on the other hand, a lot of people say that that's not our metaphysics enough, and that indeed the impersonal, immaterial does have an overall intelligence, does have an essence, does have a wisdom and intelligence, something that is actually there in terms of consciousness. Okay, and that's very important, because I'm coming to the sort of little revelation that I had. Because it could be that the reason why soul has descended into the lower worlds, this kind of U shape. Oh dear, I haven't got it right. There is this kind of U shape, where the soul starts off united with God, and then it descends into the realm of the Demiurge, There's the realm of the Demiurge, and there's the Ineffable. And the soul reaches down into the lower worlds and goes back up. What's the point, you might ask? What's the point of it? It doesn't seem there's any point to go away from home in order to go back home again. Not unless you think, not unless it is in fact the idea, just as people have argued that, when you're thinking about a sort of Gandalf figure for God, that's just anthropomorphizing the ek, the chi, the sort of Om energy. You're just putting a personality to it. What if, in fact, we need to take from our experiences on Earth, in this dimension, in the realm of the Demiurge, we're supposed to take our experiences and take them with us to the Ineffable, so that there's a permanent personalization, if you like, of the Ineffable. It's like as if we have a concept of God, which we have created through a melding of a transcendental experience which is beyond description. And we put a description to it based on our experience of society and of ourselves and of our loved ones. And these two experiences have come together to create, people saw a vision of the Holy Blessed Mary, or of God himself, or of the saints, or whatever, or some kind of Holy Spirit as tongues of fire. And that's the tongues of fire is an image created, let us say, by our experience of fire, material fire, and a transcendental experience of something which cannot be conceived of. And we put these two together, and this is the unique thing about the human soul. And we take this unique experience, unique melding of something which cannot be conceived of and something that can be conceived of, or was constructed by our experience of real life, real in quotes, and we take that to the Ineffable. So basically we're populating something which would be a blank white space. We're populating it with all the images that we have derived from our experience, not only of this dimension, of the material dimension, but of our astral dimensions as well, and the etheric dimensions, and quasi-transcendental dimensions, as I've called them, which are still of the Demiurge, still of duality. So we're taking the images of the duality that we have experienced into a realm of non-duality, and populating that realm of non-duality with everything that we have experienced. So then we accept the destructive elements of this world. We rejoice in the preservation of it, and we certainly rejoice in the creativity part, the creation part of it. And we're taking these three sort of categories of experience and we're sort of how one might say, distilling them from detaching them from their material or astral references, and we're detaching them from the references, and we're giving them a new reference, which is the Ineffable, which is the God world, which is the realm of the true God. So that's basically why we have descended, and when we ascend back, we take with us all our experiences, and these will be given a new reference, will be given a new meaning. And instead of referring all these images to a world of scarcity, for example, we'll be giving all these images a new meaning, a new reference to a realm of abundance, infinite abundance, for example, which is one of the qualities that we conceive of as pertaining to this realm of the true God, you see. So that was my kind of little revelation this morning. I thought, well, that's why we're here. We're here to gather information, but we're also here to gather light, because we're also here, I suppose, to unite our experience of the material and of the realm of the Demiurge with various inexplicable transcendental experiences, and to take that melding, that unity, with us into the next life. So it's not that soul is imprisoned. It's that soul is in a well, soul is basically constructing everything that you will need in terms of experience to populate the next world, to populate a world which would be completely inconceivable, would have no reference. If you just ascended without all the experience that, let us say, soul ascended, back up to heaven, all your experiences would mean nothing, would be lost, and all that loss would be you wouldn't be able to sort of see heaven or see God. So it's only by having all the experiences that we have on this particular plane of existence, it's only by having these experiences that we and the occasional transcendental experience, which references or anchors the material experiences to the spiritual. It's only by having this situation that we'll attain a consciousness that is able to perceive what would otherwise be imperceivable. And so basically that's a kind of an interesting, it's not strictly speaking Gnostic. It's more tantric, I suppose. It's more Indian, it's more Hindu, or more Buddhist even, I suppose. But it also goes beyond that as well, because, it's a necessary struggle to be here, and to gather all this information. And I suppose it's a big struggle to unreference it from our material existence and reference all these images to a spiritual one. But I mean, we do that pretty well. I mean, religion has all the iconography, it has the metaphysics, it has the cosmological speculation. You are doing it. You're taking a transcendental experience and you're dressing it up in images that have come from the material. And with this ability, you're going to enter into a new consciousness, which is sort of the best of both worlds. It's taking material consciousness and spiritual consciousness and making a third force out of it, and making something completely new. It's like a synthesis. So instead of having, spirit matter dualism, matter is the antithesis of spirit, we're actually taking a synthesis. We're actually looking to create a synthesis of material and spiritual, in order to take that with us into the realm of non-dualism. So I'm not sure. I hope I've conveyed this. I think it's quite important because, its implications are that that we shouldn't be too nihilistic on one hand, too materialistic on one hand, and too transcendental on the other. And yet, of course, I have argued that to my mind, a lot of mystery schools are not transcendental enough. So I've got myself in a bit of a philosophical contradiction here, because I don't seem to like groups for they're not transcendental enough. And yet here I'm saying that you need the non-transcendental in order to make the transcendental happen. But that does follow the sort of alchemical laws of taking base metal and making it into gold. And you make gold out of base metal by creating a unity between our material consciousness on one hand and our spiritual consciousness on the other. So I'm not saying anything particularly new here, really. It just suddenly dawned on me, that we do have a purpose in life. And the purpose, if you like, is to sort of, troll the ocean of materialism, in order to clothe what would be unexperienced, beyond experience, or to clothe what is beyond experience with things that we can experience, in order to in the future be able to refer or be able to make sense of our experience of the ineffable, when in fact we do transcend completely to the spiritual realm.